Let's make sure my volume's all the way up. Welcome. You can see the title, advertising my latest video. Welcome. I'm advertising my latest video. Also letting off some steam and also giving updates. Kabunam no go expand forever. My patrilineage and all of their archers. Yes, that's the best translation for all I'm going to be using now, archers. But specifically, the ones that connect them to other lineages, my other ancestors. My name is Chimaoge. You can also call me Moge. Yes, government name Chimaoge Chijoke Ibe. Alternate white structure name Chimaoge Chijoke Ibe Morpho. Given name Chimaoge. Forename Moge. Being name Incordier. The name of this network. Welcome. Let's make sure I'm up. Let's get up. Shorts. Okay, yeah. So it looks like we got stuff. Anyway, that's an ad. So I got up the video. Thinking about money a lot because I don't have food right now. But also, I've been practicing getting out my painful emotions from having a deadbeat dad. And you know, like I said before, the definition of deadbeat dad needs to be expanded. Our idea of deadbeat dad is limited. We know of the one who just left. Okay. What about the one who was there and did nothing? That's still a deadbeat dad. Being a dad is an active process. And you have to actively do something good. You can't actively be doing something bad. What was my dad doing? He was yelling, screaming, insulting, hitting, not doing anything positive. There was no teaching. There was just verbal explosion of mud, okay? A verbal explosion of mud is not a lesson. And again, it was not age appropriate, okay? I should not have been seeing every crime in the world as a toddler. Not every news item is for a child. Anyway, but I've been thinking about how he insulted my personhood when I was sick. And again, my health is still not at its peak. But he was insulting my personhood when I was sick by saying I was financially responsible. Welcome, just registered a viewer. And mind you, this is a man who was at least 38, and I'll say it like that, I suspect he was older. This is a man who was at least 38 when I was born, and at that time he was not doing well financially. What do I mean by that? This is a medical doctor, but by his own account he was running all over the place, and he said he had like 4 jobs when I was a young child. Okay, again, I don't remember, but that's his own account. Think about it. If someone is running all over the place with 4 jobs, are they doing well financially? No, too much stress. And especially if he was a medical doctor. So I'm saying this because when he was my age, at the time that this particular insult began, I was 22. I just left the campus of Harvard University. And I left because of the global medical emergency that was happening at that time, right? We're all told to leave campus. I came back. I just finished my senior thesis in English department. I did a double major, basically. They call it joint concentration, a double major, English and African Studies. Okay. But it was filtered primarily from the English department because that's where I studied. I started, obviously stayed in the English department, but then merged it with African Studies, right? So I just done all that work, and I've been pushing through health issues that have been worsening over time. I was 22, I'm 28 now. I get off campus, he starts insulting me by saying that I'm not doing financially well enough. Mind you, I had not even graduated from college yet. He's talking about me making a lot of money. So what's distressing about this is you have a man who is at least in his 60s at the time. And I say at least because I suspect he's older, because I've asked him about his exact age before, and he's gotten distressed. So I don't know why you would lie about your age, especially to your first and only son, your first child, the first grandchild of your 2 parents. I'm big in my lineage. But anyway, and just to be clear, just because you're the first doesn't mean you're good, but you have a big responsibility. I have a big responsibility. I look up to it, and I'm big naturally. Anyway, so the whole point is, by the way, his name is Anthony, my biological father. So Anthony is comparing, because he was using himself as an example of a financial standard I should meet. and he was using himself at the time, right? So how could a 60-something-year-old man be comparing his son in his 20s, who's not yet graduated from college, and that's not because I was late, that's just because time. How could he be making a comparison to suggest I should be on this level financially? That's crazy. Then this thing continued. Mind you, I was sick. And this so-called medical doctor was telling me that I was being financially irresponsible because I was too sick to work a 9 to 5, basically. He doesn't understand anything. And then on top of that, he added more insult into this by saying that I was too financially irresponsible to get married. The language he was using is that I had to work to make money so I could get married, and that if I didn't make money, I wouldn't be able to get married to a woman. Now, there are a lot of presumptions in there. But I'll just address two. One, there was the presumption, I'll just say one, there's the presumption that, I'll just say there's a presumption that, you know, I didn't know any women I could potentially marry. Again, I'm not, and again, I don't want to go into it too much. I'm not married right now, let's just say that, at least not in a way that can be shown publicly. I believe there's many stages to a relationship. I think marriages can often begin before most people in society say that. But really, I don't have a relationship that can be shown publicly right now. I'm working on that. But he made that assumption with that discourse. And next to that assumption is the assumption that I don't know any women who would marry a man who's not rich, okay? And then second, the big assumption is that marriage can be bought financially. That's what Anthony was talking to me about. Mind you, again, this is a man who is late in his milestones, okay? I should have older siblings from him, but when I was born, he was at least 38, okay? And I'll leave it at that. Where are my other siblings, Anthony? He's late. He's late. He's late. On his Zuzu, on his Zuzu in Kerala, in Kerala, on his Zuzu, 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 on his Legu, Egu, on his Mifu, Venus, on his Zuzu, on his Zuzu, he's slow, he feels the burn. On his Zuzu, onion Zuzu, onion Zuzu, onion Zuzu. So, just thinking about that, because what my ancestors have told me is that every day for the rest of my life, I have to do something to step on the false idea of my deadbeat dad, because it's an internal injury. Because you see, if you don't become a child's father while they're a child, there's a big limit to whether you can father them going on. Because fatherhood goes on throughout your life and throughout your child's life. But, you know, there's something special in particular about one's childhood father. So if you didn't father someone when they were a child, you're not their childhood father. And then the closer you are in genetic relation to someone, the harder it is to continue or really even begin fathering them once they're an adult, because you two are the same, right? You come from that same gene pool, right? Because at some point your father, while they're teaching you, has to be learning with you. They have to be scooping the information from your other teachers, because your fathers are your teachers to you, and in that process learning. But if there's no childhood connection made, that's not possible. So because of that, forever and always, Anthony is not my father. Just you can see he did not father. Let me go into depth about this more. There are many criteria for fatherhood, but there are certain things that exclude fatherhood, and there are certain things that are certainly not fatherhood. For example, yelling at a child is not fatherhood. So if you spend all your time near a child yelling at them, you're not the father, okay? First of all, if you command respect naturally, you shouldn't have to yell. Second of all, that is a child. There's no need to yell at a child. If a child has chosen not to listen to you, just do something else, right? And I'm not big on the concept of bad children. That saying that we have bad children, obviously, like a child is still a person, they can do something wrong. But saying that we have completely bad children, that's just like saying that we have bad nature forever. That's really extreme. So just being careful there. I'm just saying, before you start saying a child is bad, you have to look into your own mind. And also, if you know anyone who's constantly talking about how children are bad, take their children out of their possession. That is an evil person. Okay, there's no reason to be that worked up about what a child does. And just to extend it further, there's no reason why you cannot bring up somebody's problems in depth when their adulthood begins, right? Before that, the child, who is a sleeping version of their adult self, should simply be parented and instructed. If for some reason it didn't go in, that has to be evaluated when the child is an adult, when the child is no longer a child. Anyway, so yeah, anyway. And check out my video on the God of Thunder. The God of Thunder strikes down deadbeat dads. And I do want to add one other thing about romantic relationships. It's very hard in the modern day to judge individual people's romantic relationships because our idea of them is so off collectively. So one, you have the idea of monogamy. That's wrong. That destroys everyone's filter. And then secondly, there's just so much chaos and evil in society today that it's often hard for good people to have good romantic relationships. So I do want to say that. At the same time, there's certain things one can see that can tell you that a relationship is definitely not good. For example, physical abuse, worse, and then verbal abuse, particularly public verbal abuse. I'm just giving those examples because those are all too prevalent today. And those are unfortunately things I witnessed growing up. Well, verbal abuse, I'll say. I didn't witness anything else, but I witnessed verbal abuse, from my dad to my mother, which is not good. And then really in my family, really starting as a teenager, I was hearing of at least accusations of other things. So my family relationships, the example set by my elders was very bad in terms of their romantic relationships. So I saw a lot that I could conclude the relationships weren't good. And, if you can conclude that a relationship is not good in your own family, they really messed up because they showed you too much of it anyway. You really shouldn't be seeing that much. Really, you shouldn't be seeing so much of your family members' romantic relationships that you can definitively say they're bad. Okay, I'll say that because that's supposed to be for a zone for other people in their romantic zone. You're not in your biological family member's romantic zone. Okay, so there's that. Going off of that, when we're talking about romantic relationships, I want to add in two things. One, love is crucial for all of them. Love is crucial for all of them. If there's no love in a romantic relationship, it's done. So looking at other things before love in a romantic relationship is faulty. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, if you don't want to look at the love or the possibility of love in a romantic relationship, Is it for you to evaluate? Probably not. Okay. A big reason I'm saying this is because a lot of times people go to their family members first to evaluate romantic relationships. That is not appropriate. They, how should I say it? They cannot be with you in your intimate moments with your romantic partner, so they can't really look at the love properly. All they can do is look at the outside. Not that that's not important, but you need other people to evaluate it first. I'll leave it at that. So love is crucial. Secondly, we have to look at romantic relationships systemically. We do too much individual analysis. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Complicated subject. Okay. I want to get out of here. Before that, I do want to ask for money. And I'm just going to be blunt. I'm out of food right now. Due to the effects of Anthony and other things he set in motion, as well as general systemic issues, right? The economy in the U.S. is not doing well right now. Most reports would indicate that. I know there's some reports that indicate they're trying to mix it up, quite frankly. That's not true. Let me just go into that, more depth about that. Only about, and this is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and other similar, I guess, information gathering organizations, only about 65%, and later I will find the exact statistic, because here on Inquiry and Anger, I'm just getting stuff out. I'm going to get more exact on Chimaoge'S comments when I come back on this. Check out the Hand of God. Only about 65% of all working age Americans, I'll say it like that, and that's between the ages of about 60 and 65. Only about 65% of those people are currently employed. What does that mean? More than one in three Americans of those ages do not have employment. Okay. So already, when you're looking at that, if you're a reasonable person, you have to conclude that there are many people who are out of employment through no fault of their own. Said another way, if the system was working efficiently, either those people would be employed or everyone would be getting knocks on their door with job offers because there would be unfilled jobs, okay? There's no way you can have that many, people in the country and there's not a job for every single one of them. Because at the end of the day, working is a collective effort. The more hands-on stuff, the better. Right. So, we have that. Then, we have to deal with the concept of the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate, if you look at it by itself, does not give you the full picture. Because one is just one stat. But two, that is the percentage of what they call people in the labor force who are unemployed. But the labor force is not every working age American. The labor force is defined as every working age American who is actively seeking a job or is currently working. This is the thing though, and I'll just say it like this to keep it simple. Just because someone is not actively seeking a job does not mean they do not want one. And secondly, it can be hard to see how active someone is in job seeking. I'll give two examples. You might have someone who really wants a job but is sick, right? So that's a big issue. And second, you might have someone who is constantly thinking about how to get a job but has not, say, submitted an application or knocked on a door. So those are just two examples. And then we also have to consider that we can have people who are reasonably demoralized, right? So when you look at people in the labor force, right, even those people, about 5% of them are unemployed. So when you take that number out of the general statistic, because again, based upon my recollection, about 65% of working age Americans are in the labor force. It correlates strongly to the number of people who are unemployed, right? I think the numbers are slightly different, but it's basically the same. But if you take out that 5.5%, you end up with something like about only 60% of Americans are employed. And I want to emphasize, America is not the only place that matters. But America, because of the way the global system is set up, sets the economic tone for the world. Let me add in a short. And because of that, if there's this much lack of employment, in other words, if there's so few people who are employed in America, this shows that there's a global employment problem, and we can see that long term. So, story short, what am I trying to say here? One, let me give you my intro. I really want to step on my deadbeat dad. Telling a 22-year-old black man who would not get graduated from college and was deathly sick that he was irresponsible because he was not making a lot of money. Because I also want to add the way he and really his acolytes were talking, because there was others involved in abusing me. The way they were talking, I should have had a job that was making like 6 figures or more. Because, I was saying that once I got my stuff together or, if I was able to push through. Really, I'll say once I got my stuff together. Let me just say that because health-wise, my target was to get a starting job with a salary of like $40,000 and then be $40,000 a year and then be building up my media company on the side. Again, I hadn't fully formulated it, but I knew I wanted to do some sort of media company, right? I was calling it different names, but I telegraphed that I was going to start my own business and it was going to be in the media field, right? So that was my idea at the time. Again, this is really from the period of about March 2020 through to like August of 2020. Let's just say June of 2021, because starting June 2021, I was running a rescue operation at eBay Medical that Anthony eBay did not pay me enough for. But anyway, the whole point is I want to step on that idea, and I really want to say I'm not a Republican. One of the reasons I'm not a Republican is because I see the foolishness of philosophies like what Anthony put out, that no matter what, somehow you should just become Jesus Christ and get a job. No, that's not realistic. So I want to step on that. But now the two things for my general audience. My personal stuff is just the zero. That's the possibility that begins everything. I hope you get something from that, but I'm not just out here to talk about my own problems. I don't like having my own problems. Anyway, but what am I saying with those general labor statistics I was talking about? One, to any of you who are having trouble finding employment, and I want to emphasize we have to change the language of how we talk about things economically. I'm not unemployed. I'm self-employed. This is my business. A lot of times people who are self-employed get written off because everyone has been told by mommy and daddy since they were 5 that it's not a job unless someone else is handing you the money and that person controls what you do. That doesn't make any sense. But if you're having trouble finding employment, whether you're self-employed or employed by others, just know that it's not all your fault. At the very least, it might not be your fault at all because there's a lot of systemic issues at play. 1. 2, so that's just to give you all a bit of encouragement. 2, as a people, as a category of life, I'm saying we need to reform the way work is done in the world today, because this situation globally, if you can see the big eyesore in the US and then the other eyesores around the world, shows that we're not doing it efficiently. Anyway, that's all. Now, to patronize me as usual, buy my art, buy my merchandise. Again, the art is on Patreon. That's where I want to highlight it. You can get it some other places with subscription, but to just buy individual pieces raw right now on Patreon. Please also buy my merchandise. I'll highlight my Streamlabs merchandise shops. as well as my Patreon. Certain subscription tiers, you can buy merchandise. Merchandise stuff like clothes, bottles, notebooks, things of that nature. And I'm working on putting more merch items up. Yes, I'm working on getting more merchandise items up. 3, please subscribe on Patreon. Subscribe on Patreon. Subscriptions begin for as low as $4 a month, and you get access to art there. And then 4, you can donate. You can donate on PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. You can donate on PayPal at OZBenwuku, at OZIIBENWUKU. The O and the I are capital. You can use the same handle on Venmo. And then on Cash App, you can use $OZBenwuku, OZIIBENWUKU. And on both of those, the O and the second I should say, are capital. Thank you very much. See you next time. Let's put up one more short. All right. And I need food, so help me out.